Welcome back to Singe's Shred Corner. Today we're going to talk about visualizing and memorizing the notes all over the fretboard on all 6 strings. Now the first step to do that is to know and memorize all the open string notes. What are those? We've covered that before, but to review, starting on the lowest string, low to high, they are E, A, D, G, B, and high E. This high E being exactly 2 octaves up from the low E. Now it takes 12 frets to go up an octave. This is an E. This is another E. If I had 24 frets, oh I do. That's the same note as the high E. Now these strings are tuned 5 or 4 frets apart for standard tuning. 5th fret up of the E string is the A string. You can do that again for the next string. 5th fret to the D string, 5th fret to the G string, 4th fret to the B string, and 5th fret to the high E. What that means is that you can play phrases on different strings with the same notes by going up a number of frets. For example, on the high E I can play this, starting on the 2nd fret. Now if we were to play that on the B string, we'd have to go up 5 frets because the 5th fret is equal to the E, right? So 2 plus 5 equals 7. Check it out. Or, if we wanted to do that on the G string, now we'd have to go up 4 frets. And now 5 frets again. 5 frets again. And I don't have more than 24 frets, so I can't do that on the low E. The musical alphabet is the letters A, B, C, D, E, F, G. In some keys, you will have sharps and flats of those notes, but let's talk with just the plain old letters right now. Between each of those letters, there is a sharp. For example, A sharp, and B. So it would take 2 frets to go from A to B, right? And that's true of all the other letters, except there's no B sharp and there's no E sharp. So B, the next fret up is C. When you play E, the next fret up is F. Let's apply that. So if we start on the low E string and we go up 1 fret at a time, there's E, there's no E sharp, so the next fret is F. Then we got F sharp, go to G, next is G sharp, next is A, then we go to A sharp, which leads into B, and then B sharp, no, it goes up to C. C sharp, and D, D sharp, and E. The next one would be, of course, E sharp? No, F. Cool. A really useful tool to have in your arsenal when you're memorizing the notes is to be able to see and visualize the octaves of the notes you're playing. That is the same note, higher and lower on the scale. Let's say we played a C on the A string. You might recall I said you can play the same note up 12 frets. That's also a C. But if we wanted to stay in the same general area, to play a higher C, you would go up 2 strings and up 2 frets. Because of the way that the strings are tuned, that's 5 frets apart for the next string, 5 frets apart for the next string, and then 2 frets over. 5 plus 5 plus 2 is 12, right? So C, this pattern works anywhere on the A and the E string. There's a G sharp octave. There's a G octave playing on the low note on the E string. Now, if you are to arrive on the B string, which is tuned differently, 4 frets up instead of 5, or you're going to skip over the B string, then you need to shift that upper note up 1. So it's going to be up 2 strings and 3 frets, like this. Not up 2 frets, that's not an octave. Or skipping over the B string, playing a note on the G string and the high E. Now if you wanted to play the lower octave further to the right on the fretboard than the higher note, then how you would voice that is go down 3 strings and over 2 frets, like this. Now you might notice that when we play the bar chord, like C major, there are 3 C's in there. There's that original root C, there's the octave C, and there's that high C giving the pattern we just went over. 3 C's. Makes it very root heavy. Very major. One instance that knowing and memorizing these notes is going to help is when you're reading a chord chart or your bandmate is telling you which chords to play. Quick, play a D sharp major. Where's D sharp? C, D, and E, so that's the D sharp in between, major shape. Or D sharp minor. Quick, play an F sharp minor. F, G, so that's F sharp, minor shape. Quick, play a C sharp diminished. C sharp, that's C and D, so C sharp is here, diminished shape. Remember, don't bar over that high E, that's not in the chord. So practice doing this, write down some chord progressions, and just see how quickly you can get through them and calculate them, and you will learn these in no time. In addition to knowing where roots of chords are on the lowest two strings, you also need to know where those notes sit on the higher strings. So I want you to practice doing octaves like this. Find the note G sharp. Okay, where's the other G sharps? Here, and here, and here. With all those shapes we did, right? Okay, let's do a D. Here's a D. We know that's the D. This is the octave. Another octave up. You come over here and go down. And go down, right? Another really useful exercise is to pick a note, let's say C, and locate that on all 6 strings, but not using any octave tricks that we just went over. So let's use a C. On the high E, where would that be? Back from this E, going backwards D, that's a C. On the B string, well, there's no B sharp, so it's right there. Now on the G string, we'd have to go G, A, B, C. But you better memorize that, don't be counting. That's a crutch when you forget. On the D string, well, C is just before D, right? C sharp, there, and then D. On the A string, A, B, C, C sharp, oh, C is right there. And on the low string, well, it's the same as the high string, right there. Use your fret markers to help you memorize the notes. On the 3rd, 5th, 7th, and 9th fret, you've got a single dot on the inlay, right? And on the 12th, you've got a double dot. On my guitar, since I have this fancy inlay, those aren't there, but I do have the double dot here on the side. I'm not supposed to look like this anyway, right? 12th fret here, double dot, single dot, single dot, single dot, single dot. But I don't need that because I've memorized this long ago. Now use your 3rd, 5th, and 7th fret to memorize the notes of the low E. You've got, that's G, A, B. Now on the A string, you've got C, D, E, and look for similar mnemonic patterns to help you out. Thank you for supporting the channel. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification icon. I have a ton of lessons, performances, and originals coming right up. We are just getting started. See you soon.